But now, in the first of a new series, Fry's English Delight takes us to a universe full of magical language. Here's Stephen Fry.
Tapping fingers. Magic is just an empty box. That's almost a catchphrase for magicians. But actually, I hope that the empty box in our Manchester studio doesn't stay empty for too long. I've been waiting 10 minutes now. Darren? Darren, is anybody
Hello.
there? Hey!
I am here.
Hello, Darren
Hello.
Brown. Hello there. Now, of course, 200 years ago, people have regarded the idea of you in Manchester and me here in London speaking as a kind of magic.
Yes, magic's always been synonymous with technology that we haven't quite caught up with. Anything that is suitably incomprehensible is equatable with magic.
That's the Arthur C. Clarke definition, isn't it? It seems to bear up. You're a part hypnotist, part magician, part mind control, which your name was first associated with. Well, how would you describe language in all that?
I think magic's all about language. Magic's all about a story that you tell yourself of something that's happened. I mean, if you think about it, magic doesn't really relate to what a magician does. It relates to an experience that somebody has in the audience or as a spectator. It's something that you create yourself. So therefore, it is a narrative. It's a story you tell yourself after the event. What's more important to me is the language that the spectator uses after the event. So, as any magician will know, half of the trick happens when it's all over, when someone's describing a trick that they've seen to somebody else.
Yes.
In the same way that if you're talking about a holiday that you've loved, you kind of inflate certain aspects of it, even more so with a magic trick, because you want to show that you've been fooled by something that is worthy of being fooled by. You know, you don't want to look like an idiot.
Each repetition, it gets more extreme. So, yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that our ancestors would have made much of the magic of hearing someone from the grave, as it were. This is the late Terence McKenna, explorer, philosopher, and seeker of mind-altering states.
There's the scientific theory, which says the world is tiny packets of matter squealing along through empty space. Another theory is the world is made of language.
Magic, magic, be happy every day.
The world is made of language. That's a compelling idea. Stuff we can't see or touch, whose workings we don't fully understand.
Remember this rule.
Dr. Steven Pinker, experimental psychologist, cognitive scientist, and Harvard intellectual.
It's not surprising that people think that language has magical powers, because words are kind of mysterious. Through the use of words, I can, in a real sense, control your mind. And that's because the processing of language is automatic. We can't turn it off. If someone says something to us in a language that we understand, we can't just process it as a stretch of sound. The brain automatically converts it into meaning, which means if I say a word, in earshot of you, you will think that thought, because you have no choice but to process the meaning of what I say, even if the meaning is very upsetting. If I were to swear at you, that would light up some of the deep and upsetting emotional circuits of the brain. And that makes words seem very, very powerful, especially if you don't have an understanding of neuroscience, so that there's a pathway from sound to eardrum to auditory centers of the brain to emotional centers of the brain. It can seem that words themselves are a kind of magic.
So mind control through language, something we've all tried from an early age, moving the Cocoa Pops from Mum's side of the breakfast table to our own by muttering zenith and frowning intently. The Harry Potter generation would have other words, of course. If language is something magic, apparently allowing people to control others' minds, think of the names chosen by those who want to enforce the mystery further. Svengali, Houdini, the great Soprendo, Sooty. Somehow the vowel ending increases the exotic. Darren Brown. Yeah. That must be your real name, I'm assuming. Did it ever occur to you to get a stage name?
No. Perhaps because my interest in magic is, rather than asking people to suspend their disbelief, is more about sort of engaging belief, so it becomes something, I think, more interesting. I think then, so maybe a reflection of that is not going for a fantastical name.
I know from your autobiography you started doing table magic in restaurants and things, and that seems to me to be the real test in some ways, because...
That's horrible.
Yeah, you do get people who've naturally been drinking, and they're going to go, it's a trick. You've got to own that space, haven't you?
Yes, you have. I remember once doing something like that. There were a bunch of people sat around a table with me. You know, I was doing a trick for everybody. It was a card trick, and they were all sort of enjoying it, apart from one guy who was being very polite about it, but was just saying, look, I'm sorry, I just don't really sort of get it. And I said, what do you mean? What's the problem? And they said, well, I don't get what I'm supposed to be appreciating here. And it was just, the whole experience had just sort of totally over his head. You know, he wasn't being rude, just didn't get caught up in and that's really what it's about. It's about being ultimately transported by something, and that's not really ultimately to do with the method. It's to do with the effect that you create.
Is part of this to do with you can tell which people are more susceptible to or a suggestion? Or...
Yes, you look for a certain openness. It's a personality trait, really. I think some people just have it and some people don't. I'm not a very good subject at all for it, and other people just are. And then yes, once you have that, those will be the same people that'll be probably very responsive to placebos and other forms of suggestion and just things that sort of operate in that area.
Are there certain words that you would always be wary of using, and others that that are good to use? Like, is maybe bad to say concentrate, but good to say focus, or something as simple as that?
I think it's about understanding presuppositions, I think, is the key. And it's a very NLP word, a neuro-linguistic programming word. But if you say to somebody, oh, you'll really like my friend, you'll really get on with them, of course your initial reaction is to sort of back away from that. You think, well, maybe I won't. You know, so the key, I think, is understanding presumption and presupposition and being able to, rather than saying things directly, to sort of imply them in a way that people make those decisions themselves. Hypnosis has become a lot more permissive over the years. Like the old language of, you will do this, you are feeling sleepy, has now been replaced by you can allow, you can notice how that sleepiness is. It's more inviting.
It is.
Yeah.
Magic is a disease of language, claimed the occultist Aleister Crowley. A bizarre image, but devilishly suggestive. It's odd, then, that we encourage children to learn a vocabulary that goes out of its way to corrupt reality.
So on the count of 1, you're going to show the coin. On the count of 2, you're going to take the coin. On the count of 3, you're going to move over to the side. On the count of 4, you're going to give it a little blow. Or say the magic words, abracadabra, hocus pocus, whatever you like, and that's what the point you make the magic happen.
Davenport's Magic Shop is one of my favourite places in the world. It's in the depths of London's Charing Cross Underground Station, and it's the oldest family magic shop in the world. A real-life Diagon Alley with certified professors to take novices through the ropes. Or the cards.
Remember that card? I'm going to take your card and put it in the middle. 7 of diamonds.
Yes.
The world of legerdemain, literally lightness of hand, has 2 languages. The deliberately mysterious on-stage language of izzy-wizzy, let's get busy, and the secret trade jargon known only to those within the Sooty, what are you doing here? What? Oh, gestural Oh, I see. Sooty says that there are, in fact, 3 languages if we include the language of silence, of expectation, of conjuring images where there are none. Yes? What record? Oh, resonate. Oh, yes. Which, says Sooty, resonates with the idea of magic as an empty box to be filled with the spectator's imagination. Thank you, Sooty. Well, possibly. Let's stick to 2 languages now, and Scott Penrose, who is vice president of that most secret of magic societies, the Magic Circle.
There's the language that the magicians use, and of course there's the language of performance, which are 2 different things altogether. Essentially, when it comes to the language of performance, it's one of the few businesses where you're allowed to lie, I think, quite legitimately. And a lot of magic wouldn't survive without the patter, and the patter is actually part of the technique. So you've got, on one level, a number of sleight of hand moves going on in conjunction with a lie, and that's the lie of your patter and your language that you're using throughout to deceive the audience.
You can't have the ball, you got the ball in the cup, you can't be in the pocket, you can't be in the can at the same time as on the cup. If, on the other hand, the ball and the cup are together, then the cup... You're not following this, are you?
Magician Paul Daniels cupping balls with a bedazzling spool of near nonsense. And you can get the DVD and slow it down. So, the rhetoric of magic, the actual sound, rhythm, speed and delivery of the words, is key to its effectiveness, whether you're a shaman performing an autopsy on a chicken or a popular Yorkshireman sawing his attractive wife in half. Let's look at some of those suggestive words, then, that make up the magician's glossary. Folklorist Juliet Wood.
Abracadabra we know from, maybe the 3rd century AD as an amulet. Now, an amulet was something you wore rather than something you said. And abracadabra would be written in a kind of triangle shape. So you'd keep writing the word and dropping off one letter from the ending until you got this triangle. And it was supposed to protect you from disease.